There are things that you learn in the course of doing business that maybe someone has told you, someone along the way has given you advice and you have knowledge of it. Like you are have an awareness of it. But to really honestly know something, bake it into your bones, live it, and just operate from that place. That is what we're going to talk about today. This is the Conscious Edge podcast, and I'm your host, Alicia St. Germain, here with Jonathan Duggar, our resident wellness advocate and my longtime dear friend. We are on episode 52.
Dun, dun, dun. I feel like we need to have like theme music playing over this or fireworks going off or something.
I am so I'm feeling it like so deeply in my heart. That is one whole year of coming to you every single week with a podcast episode. It has been such a fast year, and it's also, we've covered so much ground.
It is absolutely unbelievable to me that this has been a year. It has flown.
I know.
And in my head, it was going to be just the opposite.
It was going to be painful.
Yes, a bit.
And it's been so much fun. So if you are just joining us, just tuning in for the very first time, we started this podcast a year ago because we were planning a retreat, and we were having these incredible conversations behind closed doors. And I said, we should just start a podcast. And we both had a lot of resistance to it. You had a lot more resistance to it than I did.
Alicia tricked me into starting a podcast.
I did not. You have no free will. So we thought for today that we've learned so much. These are all things I was reflecting on this last year and everything that we've accomplished and done and created and the lives that we've touched. And there's so many business lessons that we've learned. They aren't things I think that you and I didn't know, but I just feel like I know them so now, baked in my bones, that it's just part of who I am now. So it's been kind of cool to go through it. So
very much so. And I would just expand that statement into there have been many life lessons. It wasn't just business lessons. I know this has a business focus, but for me, there have been some very, very profound life lessons through this process.
They really are life lessons. And I don't, and that's the thing, that business is so gray. And that's part of what we talk about on this podcast. And what you and I believe is, we believe in building businesses in a holistic way, one that prioritizes you, the person, the people that you love, your values, your mission in the world, what it is you want to create and how you want to make a difference. And in doing that and walking that path, you experience things intellectually, emotionally, physically. And so we talk about redefining wealth as a whole human experience, because we've talked about money and how money is such a part of what triggers us or what can bring us joy or what can help us get to make a bigger impact, but it's not everything. And so it's really interesting. It's been a really fun journey in getting to connect with so many people, and we're going to keep doing it too. Okay. So first lesson that I want to talk about is you're never ready. Doing is the best way to learn. And I hope that you hear me. If there is something that you've been thinking about doing, just do it. Because we learned so much in the process of doing this. And what do you think about the whole process of creating the podcast and doing the retreat and collaborating and learning to work together?
There's a very profound nature behind that very simple seeming statement of you're never ready. Because it is so true. And There's a line in a Eagles song or a Don Henley song that says, "The more you know, the less you understand." And that's kind of like pretending to be ready or preparing to be ready. It's like you the preparation can actually be an avoidance mechanism to not do what you're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
And I will admit that I was afraid to do our podcast. I had a lot of fear and anxiety around it. And you guys out there don't know me that well, but I'm actually a very introverted person. I have a really strong nature for privacy and autonomy that doesn't involve like, I don't know a good way to describe it. Anyway, just privacy in general. And so the idea of putting something out there in a the ultimate public fashion, it was intimidating to me. And it still is to some degree, but the process of learning by doing, which is exactly what we've been doing for the past year, is also an essential part of how I learned. So I've really learned so much about myself and about what real fear is and what false fear is, and what you make things in your head to be something that they're not. And
your big assumptions.
Yes, our big assumptions. And
I wonder, we should have done that. We should have figured out what was your big assumption around podcasting, and then we could have created a whole
that apart.
rewiring of your brain, and we could do that in an episode, Jonathan.
Actually,
that would be
I
fascinating.
would geek out on that actually a little bit.
Okay, we're doing it. We're doing it. To be continued. Yeah, no, it's I always have said that, or I have learned that when an opportunity comes up, you aren't ready. And it's to ask yourself, what is it that I need in order to be ready, or in order to move forward? And I think that's where you're talking about the preparation.
Yeah.
And then when you were talking about that, made me think of recently, I was listening to an episode of The Diary of the CEO, and I wish I had this man's name. I had written it down to talk about it on another podcast episode, but he was talking about how we get a little addicted to being in possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things you and I talk about is like you open up possibilities, like moving from scarcity to possibility, but then there's like this high of being in possibility. Oh, it'd be so cool if we start a podcast. Oh, it could be so cool if we do this. Oh, it'd be so cool if we have a retreat.
Yeah. The excitement of the new and possible. Yeah.
And then not actually doing or taking action on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really when the growth happens. And it's internal growth. It's the external growth. But we get a little addicted to that just being impossibility. And that really landed for me recently. So that's what made me think of that when you were talking about it.
That just made me think of a situation I had with a student years ago. So Alicia and I both used to teach for a company where we taught different aspects of real estate investing. And one of the classes I taught was investing in mobile homes and manufactured housing communities. And we actually made calls in my class to potential sellers of homes. And I had a person that was so excited to be in the class, so excited to learn. And we got to the last day, we were actually going to make calls, and her energy was just completely different. She was kind of shut down. And so we just started having a conversation in the class, in the context of the class. And she was going to this place of not being ready. Well, I just don't feel ready. I don't know the questions to ask. I don't know what to do. So I kept digging a little bit more, and she finally got to the point of this statement. It's like, somebody might answer the phone and I might have to have a conversation, and they might say yes. Like, then I actually say yes, and she actually have to go and, talk to them about buying their home. So I think that locks us up on a lot of different ways where we're excited about the prospects, but when it gets down to the doing, we know it's going to be work. We know there are a lot of unknowns. We know there are aspects we can't control. And so fear gets in the way, and we don't pull the trigger.
Yeah, and then the worry comes up, and then the
Yep.
self-protection mechanism, the immunity to change goes into effect, and then we get stuck there,
Yep.
right?
There's a
So,
social media person. I can't think of her name right now. It's a woman. I really like a lot of the stuff that she puts out there, but she has a thing where she says, "Do it scared.
hmm
Just do it scared."
hmm
And I like that. I like that a lot. 'Cause-
yeah. And that man's name is Robert Greene. I want to make sure
oh
I give
yeah, I
credit
know
where
that. I
credit's
know who
due.
that is too. Yes,
Yeah. And so I thought it was just a really powerful thing, and it just like
Robert
landed
Greene.
like a bomb. Okay, so next lesson. Public declarations are the best accountability.
Say
So
that again.
public declarations are the
Say it
best
fast.
accountability.
Public declarations are the best accountability. Okay,
Yes.
you'll have to lay that one out for me a little bit.
Yeah. So I can stay if you want to move from possibility into action, tell someone else.
Oh yes, yes.
Because
I see what you're saying.
with us getting on, we've been talking about doing something together for literal years.
Yeah,
I mean,
20 years.
literal years. At least 10 or 12.
Yeah.
And nothing would come up, and we kind of like skirt around it. We try a little of this and nothing would happen. And then when we started the podcast, and then we told everyone, hey, we started this podcast to do a retreat. It was like, okay, we got to do a retreat at some point. And if we keep pushing it off, what are we doing here? Like,
Yes.
so it's like tricking a lot of people have big assumptions around like what other people will think of me, like some kind of judgment or some kind of thing. And so when you have, I mean, almost everybody has some element of that in some capacity with someone in their life. And so when you put that out there, it's almost like using your own mechanism of self-protection to move yourself in the right direction.
Right. You have that accountability and that loyalty's not the right word. I'm blanking on the word I'm looking for, but where you're tied to commitment. You make a commitment to someone and you don't want to let them down. So yeah, that's exactly right. That is exactly
So it's
right.
like tricking the system essentially of self-protection. So if you want to do something, if you've had a vision for something, tell other people publicly. And then, you deal with like whatever it is, if whatever you make it mean, if it takes you longer than you thought it would, or if you change your mind or change directions, get new information, decide it's not a good fit, you work through the mindset of whatever you need to get through that piece. But it will move you from possibility to action as soon as you tell other people. Okay, third thing I came up with is doing it with friends is way more fun, or people that you love
Amen.
is way more
Amen.
fun. And it's so often I hear about business owners feeling alone and lonely, and like it's all on them. And I was just talking to Sarah G. Sarah was on the podcast episode a couple months ago, and she was saying to me just yesterday before we were recording this, she's like, I can't believe all of these people are my friends. Like, and we all like do business together, and we support each other, and we, hire each other, and there's, for support. And it is really cool when you get your inner circle and your people that you lean on, and you like them and you trust them and you legitimately just enjoy them as people. I've always said, I remember teaching in front of the wholesale class going, life is too short to do business with grumpy people. Like, if you don't enjoy with who you're doing business with, then don't.
Exactly. Well, and when you work with people that understand you on more of a personal level and recognize your flaws and aren't afraid to talk about them, and also recognize your strengths and your gifts and know how to leverage those and find compatible points with those, it changes everything. I mean, just like with you and me doing this podcast, I had built up all these things in my mind that weren't real about the logistics, the complication. I was adding layers of complication and complexity. And Alicia said to me, we're just going to have a conversation. We do that all the time. And it was like, I know that probably sounds silly to some of you, but it was such a huge thing for me when that landed. It's like, yeah, I can have a conversation. Absolutely. We talk all the time because we have those kind of conversations where we feel like we're talking for 10 minutes and it'll be 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so and that's what we started doing. That's what our podcasts are. So it's sometimes those simple insights that a friend can have, a friend and a colleague can have, that can change everything. And it does just make it so much more fun. The dynamic is, oh man, I can't talk today. The dynamic is just completely different than when you're dealing with somebody that you're having to be cautious of your words and you feel like you're got more guarded or more self-protected or something.
Yeah, and I think it's finding those people that you're in alignment with, and they
Yes.
cheer you on and legitimately care about you as much as you care about them, and want to see each other succeed. And I mean, that's what I've definitely built around me and my business. And the other thing that I've noticed is it is easier when you and I just have the conversations on the podcast. When I have to do these by myself, I have to restart typically 3 or 4 times because it's I struggle a little bit more. Once I get into it, I'm fine. But
Mm-hmm.
it's the starting and not having you there is so much harder. And it's not as much fun, honestly, for
Yeah,
me.
I can understand that. I would struggle. I've not done one of these by myself, but I think I could potentially pull it off maybe for 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know. I can do a full episode.
Mhm.
But it would definitely, I can tell you point blank, it would definitely not be as much fun.
Yeah. So doing it with friends is way more fun. Find your people. Find your people.
Did you hear what you just said?
Doing it with friends is way more fun.
Yeah, you said doing it with funds is way more friend.
I said that.
Yeah. You'll have to listen to it.
Oh, they can edit that out.
No,
You know?
no, leave it in. Leave it in. Phyllis, leave it in.
All right. Next thing. There's always more you could do. Do your best without sacrificing your well-being or the people you love.
That's yes. Wow.
Because in the process of this last year, one example, here's a perfect example. When we first started the podcast, Phyllis also talked about setting up a YouTube channel. Phyllis is our podcast producer with Sound Advice Strategies, in case you're not familiar with who we're talking about. And so she said, we're going to, we can put this on YouTube. We've got everything formatted for you to be on YouTube. That's where a lot of younger listeners are. We want to make sure we have that. And I was like, Phyllis, I do not have the capacity for that, because we started it right as I was going to a conference in June to speak and run a workshop, and then the summertime with the kids. And I was like, I just don't have the capacity to do that. So we're going back, and actually we've started that YouTube channel. We're putting old episodes on, and it's great because it helps us build a new audience. But you can run yourself into the ground and burn yourself out trying to do it perfectly, trying to do everything that you are supposed to do. And you've got to do your best. And I think working with people like Jen or someone like Jen Boss, who has helped me with my financial pieces and really looking at what is the health of my business, I can make really strategic decisions about where the focus is most important based on what the business needs right now and what I need right now. So that's my take on that.
And this all boils back to, comes down to the balance and finding places of balance and understanding that there are moments and time periods of pressure where you are a bit out of balance, but always striving to get back to places of balance. And then also looking at things as a matter and from a standpoint of steps, because often we get, especially if you're an entrepreneur or you're a small business owner, often we feel like we have to do everything and we have to take on everything, and it all has to happen at once. And that quickly puts you in a place of overwhelm. So, I'm not going to say that we've mastered anything to this, but we have some experience where it feels more obtainable or feels less like work or whatever framework you want to put it in. So that's when you can do the next step. Now that's a good indication that you're ready for a next step. You can add to what you're doing because you've now have some experience to build from. So.
And I think the other thing is knowing that you're going to do it again. A lot of place of burnout comes from trying something once and then trying something else new once
Yes.
and then trying something else new
Mm-hmm.
once versus looking at what worked. Like we just did an episode around what worked about the retreat, what we would do differently. We debriefed that also off the podcast. And once we processed it, there was a part of me when we were debriefing where I thought, oh, I'm not going to do another retreat this year. I don't have capacity. And then thought about how to do it differently. And I was like, oh, okay, we could do one in September. And I pull out my calendar. I'm like, okay, here's when we can do it. And it was, again, moving back into flow, like ease. Nothing
Exactly.
about this year the last 52 weeks has felt hard. It just really has not. It maybe there's been times when I was busier or it was more intense, but it never felt hard or like I was off base or shouldn't be doing it.
Well, and I can say that I think that is not because there haven't been some hard things that have happened.
Yeah.
But when you change your mindset and you change your perspective to one of taking care of yourself, taking care of your family and those you love, and then taking care of your business, you always know that when you are in those places of starting to feel overwhelmed, that you check yourself and you back it up instead of letting it go too far. And that's what happens to so many people that feel like they are always overwhelmed. It's because they never back up and change perspective and change direction and just give themselves permission to take a break, to be still, to say no to something, to whatever it is. So no, I agree, especially along the lines of the podcast and then putting together the retreat and then conducting the retreat. Yes, there were moments of where I put too much pressure on myself, but it was completely self-induced. It had nothing to do with the actual process. And then the action. Then once we did have the retreat, as you guys will hear, we'll talk when we talked about that in the sort of overview of how everything panned out. It was it was such a joyous event. It was such a restorative event, and it felt fluid and organic and fun. And that's, like you said earlier, life's too short. That's the way it should be. And so I think that's part of it, is giving yourself permission to peel some things off, to say, that's going to wait till later, to say, I'm focusing on one area now. Because when you and I were talking about the next retreat, that was one of the things you said to me. It's like, I want to focus on these certain things. I want to give that all my attention and all my effort. And then, sort of a readjusting of, I can still do that.
Right. Well, and it was like that. It was just an ad.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
exactly.
okay. Well, if we just add the retreat here to this, giving people the option to lock in their spot at the retreat when they join the coaching program to work with me on rewiring their big assumptions and, creating a much more joy-filled life and business, and not worrying so much about what other people think, not feeling like a fraud, all of those things that we do in the program, just simply adding that on as an option for people was like, oh, well, I can definitely have both those conversations at
it's
the same
almost
time.
like it's almost like you had it in your head compartmentalized as this is something separate and apart.
Yeah.
And then it became part of the process.
Yes, exactly. And so, so that you go back and you learn, and then you do it better the next time around. And I think knowing that everything is not weighted in the one thing that you're going to do in your business. Like I think that sometimes people treat something that they do as the end all be all only time they'll ever do it. And some of them do that. That's the only time they ever do it. And they burn out in business and they get exhausted. If you actually just repeat and refine, that's really where the key is. And like I ran summits. I think I have run 6 or 7 summits. And the last time I ran it, I feel like, oh, okay, I've got this. I figured it out. I've mastered it. We aren't running a summit this year because from a perspective of what it takes and what I put into a summit versus what the returns are, they're profitable, but there are other higher and better uses of my time.
Right.
But I wasn't willing to not do them until I knew that I had been able to make it profitable.
Well, and that's another example of a learn by doing kind of experience. Yeah. That is the only way you're going to figure it out, is to go through the process and refine it, realign, refine.
And that doesn't mean that that's not something that I won't pull out again at another time. Mm-hmm. It's just not a this year thing, because I think that there's even still more that I can do with summits, just not this year. So, okay. And then the last one is learn from your mistakes and move on. And I mean, that happens. I mean, we have mistakes that happen all the time in our business. And, you know, the one that I'm really thinking about, or that I really thought about for you, was what you told me at the retreat, that you kind of had a really big breakthrough around feeling like it wasn't really a mistake, but like had some moments of struggle the first day in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. Are you not wanting to share?
No, I'm trying to think how I framed it. Just, you know, again, this all boils down to learning by doing. But, you know, I had set up this sort of magnitude in my head of what things should be and how they should work. Where all along, Alicia and I had set the intention for the retreat that it was going to be very organic, and that we were going to change on the fly, and that it was a learning opportunity for all involved, us included, really us included, because it was the first one we had done together. So I had a path to get to where I thought I needed to get to by the end of the first day. And I skipped a whole piece, and I put a lot of relevance around that initially, like, oh my gosh, you know, I worked so hard on coming up with this content, and there's a logical path to how this is supposed to work. And, you know, I screwed that all up, and I put a really fatalistic, I catastrophized around it. But I was proud of myself because I pulled myself out of that very quickly. And I wouldn't have done that a few years ago. I would have ruminated on that for possibly weeks of my screw up. So, you know, and Alicia gave me some really good feedback in the moment of, you know, maybe that's exactly what was supposed to happen. And because we ended up in a really good place. We ended up figuring out some things that would work better, you know, done differently and delivered differently. And maybe with the add of using some technology to assist and some things like that. So, you know, again, it's one of those things where, if you accept that you're learning as part of the process, and that learning is about screwing up, and figuring out where the lessons are in it and where the gifts are in it, then it takes the pressure off. It removes the negative connotation of screwing up. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think
it was, and just to give everyone a little visual, like, so we're in this retreat house, and there's 10 bedrooms. They all have their own bathrooms. And then there's this one sort of center room that has no windows. And unfortunately, I mean, the one downside, I think, to the house was that it was actually on a busy street, which they clearly stated. Maybe we didn't realize how loud it would be for the front bedrooms. And so you slept in the front bedroom in the first night before everyone had arrived. We had access early, and like didn't sleep at all because it was so loud with all the trucks. And at one point, I don't know what went down the street. It sounded like they were landing a jet airplane.
It shook the whole house, especially the front of the house.
So the second night, you decided to sleep in this little cave.
That's what I called it, my cave.
The cave, which is the center room, no windows. And it was like where everyone, if you had a family, you might stick all the kids. So it was
like a bunk room.
It was a bunk room, but then it was 3 bunks high. So it was so claustrophobic. I was like, I'm not sleeping in there, and I'm not making anybody else sleep in there.
And I loved it. It was my sensory deprivation tank.
And so he comes out first. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. Maybe it was 5:30 in the morning. And you come out and you're like, well, I'm really proud of myself. I woke up in the middle of the night worried about this mistake that I made. And then I was like, you know what? That's what we're here for. And I moved on and I just like let it go. And it was great. It was great because that's, if we are so hard on ourselves, why would you want to try anything new? Why would you want to experiment if on the other side of that experimentation, something didn't work right and then you beat yourself up about it?
Well, it's also really interesting, and I think this is important for everybody that's listening. You know, sometimes those of us that are the most conscientious about the work that we put out are also the ones that are the most critical of ourselves and what we put out. And a part of that comes from that being conscientious. But when you start to understand and move toward understanding that intention and alignment are more important than mistakes, then you can always come back and refocus on that instead of beating yourself up, and which usually serves no purpose. It's detrimental. It doesn't have any kind of positive outcome. It's usually very detrimental. So it locks up energy. So if you want to move on from that, ask the question, what did I learn? How can I do it differently? How can I improve? How can I realign? And then move on. Like you said, let it go.
Yep. And we do that. And that has been one of the most freeing things for me. And just practicing and integrating that. And that's why I'm so real with people, is the more that I just own my journey as it is supposed to be a series of trial and error and experimentation and figuring it out, and then owning like, well, that didn't work, or, here's what I'm going to tell you all. If you get my emails, there's grammar mistakes in it. If I mess up the date and I say it's a Tuesday and it's actually a Wednesday, it is what it is. Can you figure it out? Great. Like, I remember you emailed me, like, I think I put the wrong day or something on. It wasn't the date was right, the time was right, but the day that I said it was, like it was a Tuesday or a Monday or something like that, was wrong. And I was like, whoops. And here's what it is. What I think is, you who are reading it are a intelligent person. You can probably figure out what it should be and get the lesson from it, or get the opportunity from it, or get whatever it is you're supposed to get out of it without making a big deal about a human error.
Right.
And if you are making a big deal about that human error, I feel bad for you, because how hard are you on yourself if you're that hard on someone else?
Exactly.
And reach out. We can work on that. So
there's some big assumptions in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's some big assumptions in there somewhere. So it's been the most amazing year. I remember one of our first episodes we recorded. I talked about it being my birthday, and I was turning 44. And now when this episode comes out, I'll have just celebrated my 45th birthday. By the way, I have already renewed the license plates, so that will not be an issue.
I was just thinking that. Lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Renew your license plate tag early. Because not only did I do that once over the last year, I did it twice. Got it right the third time. And so it's feeling really, really great to have started this. I love this content form. It's easy for me. I do so much better, talking and I think I missed. Don't worry about saying it right. Say it a lot from the heart and keep refining it. Did I say that even?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh, I missed one of the things I've learned.
What a horrible mistake.
Don't worry about saying it right. Say it a lot from the heart and keep refining it.
That's a great one to end with too, because that's say it a lot and keep refining it. And it's right in line with exactly what I was trying to get to about if your intention's there, the alignment's there, if it's coming from your heart, that's the important part. Yeah. That's the important part.
Yeah. And I love this format. It works for me because I can spend 5 hours trying to write you the perfect email that conveys it in a way that's not tries to convey it in a way that's not confusing, has grammar errors and wrong days, or I can just do it like this, say what I need to say, and then send it to someone like Sarah G, who then takes my words and puts them into very concise writing.
Yep.
And so, don't worry about saying it right. Every time I start this podcast, I don't have a canned little phrase that I say. I still kind of sometimes say it better than others. And then Sarah G kind of pulls out, okay, here's how here's what works. Great. Now I'll keep saying that. So just do it, do whatever is aligned for you. If you are amazing at writing and talking is not your thing, don't go start a podcast because you think you have to. We talked about aligned marketing and doing it in a way that feels good for you or is lens to what your gift is.
I had a mentor that was a sports psychologist when I was in that track of my training. And he would say, help people understand how to play to their strengths and discover that they have strengths that they didn't even know existed. So it's hard to discover your strengths when you're playing to your faults. Mm. So play to your strengths, you'll discover more. When you play to your faults, you focus on your faults. So I think that's exactly what you're talking about. So dive into what you enjoy, dive into what you feel you have.
And I think that it doesn't mean we don't do the other things that we're not as skilled at. We find people we love who are strong in the ways that we are not, which is why I have people like Sarah G in my life and Jennifer Boss and Jonathan because they all bring a gift to my life that makes me strong in a way that I am not. And
you're gonna make me start crying.
It's been a while since we've done that to you. And that made me lose my whole train of thought. Oh, and I was gonna say, and the last thing I would say about this is there have been episodes that you and I have done, and this is why I'm so grateful that we've done this, is there are episodes that you and I have done that someday one of us may be here without the other. And I'm going to go listen to those episodes just so I can be near you, or you're going to listen to these episodes, or my babies are going to listen to these episodes to feel closer to you and I.
Oh, crap, that did it.
And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful for that. So I thank you, Jonathan, for being brave and courageous and doing this alongside of me, because I love getting to talk to you more regularly than we ever have in our entire relationship. We purposely have to schedule these to be a 30 to 40 minute episode takes us an hour and 15 because we have to chat first. Or after. So thank you.
I'm just so grateful for you as well in terms of pushing me out, helping push me out of my comfort zone, and just giving me such motivation and a good reason to do this. Like it, under other circumstances, I might not. I doubt. I can almost positively say that I would not have found the reason and the desire and the motivation to do this. And now I get excited about every time we get ready to record. So that is a huge shift, and that all has to do with you and who you are.
Oh, so much love. All right. Well, with all of that being said, everyone, I'm sending you so much love.
Be well, everybody.